Welcome back. You're here with the latest reincarnation of Comanche Goldberg from the 90s. Sometimes in life things go from better to worse. So I was watching for the first time that film Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants, and there's that shot early on where Blake Lively has her back turned, but of course they're showing more than just the back, and she's trying on these jeans. And it was as though the heavens opened, and I saw 400 Shaniquas with paper wings and little halos going, Walking in Memphis, tell me are you a sim child? And I was like, Ma'am, I am tonight. And then they pivot to America Ferrera doing the same thing. And I was like, well, I might as well just buy an anvil and smash my face onto it. What can you do? But today we'll discuss novels I appreciate. Yeah, there's plenty of items in the news, but this is a change of pace. I also, this week has been really busy because I'm working an extra day. I didn't intend to, but my company jacked some stuff up with a schedule, and then I've got vacation shortly thereafter. So we'll just have to pick up at some point. To begin, and this is way back in the day, I promise you, Hardy Boys, a couple of them, they had good messages, but they were also contrived. Now they wouldn't fit the demographic. You'd have to say it's homie boys or something of the same. Never read much of R.L. Stine, Goosebumps, or Animorphs. I was into, however, Choose Your Own Adventure, like the Spider Ants version and the Star Wars. It was always funny because they'd make you this random appendage to the main characters. So you'd fall into the Rancor pit with Luke, and he's unarmed, but you have a lightsaber in your shirt. It was kind of funny. A couple of them, they get old rather quickly. Obviously, went through Harry Potter and Lord of the Rings. I did read the main books, although I don't remember much of them from the time. I preferred The Hobbit, and then I read one of his smaller books, Farmer Giles of Ham. Never attempted Treason of Isengard or Silmarillion. Those are old texts I would prefer to do in an audiobook version, but I'm not sure they even exist. I have to try to track it down. And then Redwall, big fan. I read everything through to Legend of Luke, and that one is very depressing. If you've happened to mosey, you'll know what I'm talking about. After that, maybe Rackety Tam, Eulalia. People said again they were too simplistic, but I preferred the messaging when compared to stuff such as Harry Potter. It was just that same problem where they would kill off some of the more compelling characters. But at least at the time, I didn't feel as though the story was the same in each instance. Maybe if I went back, I'd be like, yeah, it's too repetitive. Wrinkle in Time. A lot of people thought that was a great text. All right. Later on, I watched the movie, which I think had Oprah Winfrey, and I'm like, I don't remember any of this stuff from the book, so I don't know if they just bastardized it for some reason. Now, Lloyd Alexander is another classic one. People think of The Black Cauldron like the movie, but there was a whole series. The Horn King was very good. He wrote Westmark, Time Cat, Prince Jen, and there's probably some others that I'm forgetting. He's also a solid American novelist in his own right. Moving on to more serious content, Russians have the uncanny ability to capture basic human motivations in ways that few others can. I imagine part of it's because of the context and the period, but Tolstoy has a Death of Ivan Illich, and it's just hilarious because the one guy, in one sense, he's trying to do it. Well, my disclaimer, I feel bad for the family, and it's tragic. But there's also a position open in the bureaucracy, which would mean an additional 800 rubles in compensation for me. It's a great way of trying to cast it. Now, I have not done War and Peace all the way through. I was doing the audiobook a few years back, and it's like 48 discs. I want to say I did 16 and I got waylaid. I have to go back and attempt it once more. Turgenev is an excellent author in his own right. He's a little bit more liberal than these others, but I think he was expelled from Russia or went into exile. Another person, Zola. Huge Zola fan. The Masterpiece is a great novel. Just recently finished an 800-page biography on him, which was surprisingly readable. And he discusses this concept. I'm sure a lot of guys will have some sympathy with it. In fact, when I was a teenager, I wrote a poem that dealt with a very related concept. But here he goes describing this female. A florist, a young girl who is living next door, passes beneath my window twice a day, in the morning at 6:30 and in the evening at 8. She's a small blonde, utterly graceful and well-turned, small hands, small feet, the nicest kind of grisette. When I know she is to pass by, I station myself at the window. She comes, lifts her eyes. We exchange a glance, even a smile, and that's all. My God, how crazy it is to love from afar the least cruel of Parisian beauties, a florist. Not to follow her, not to speak to her. I'll tell you straight out, laziness and dreaminess are what explain me. Living in this way, rather than in the other, takes much less effort. I await my adored one while smoking a pipe. And not knowing her, I endow her with 1,000 qualities. I can invent 1,000 delirious adventures and see her and hear her talk through the prism of my imagination. This has to be something you've encountered before. It's much easier for men to idealize women from a distance. And really, throughout history, there was this concept of women being at least relatively pure. This is the medieval propaganda, but it gives you a motivating factor. Unfortunately, the modern day, everything has been illuminated, as Brother Amr would say, female nature, raw and uncut. So a lot of guys, they say, why bother? Why would I sacrifice for some sharmuta, for some harlot? I'm going to have to crisscross as far as chronology goes, but Yukio Mishima is brilliant. Temple of the Golden Pavilion, Spring Snow, kind of what we were just talking about, if that's the right novel. I think it is. He describes seeing a girl he's attracted to and then becoming paranoid because other men are going to talk with her. And this is something that, again, is going to be probably not unique when it comes to guys. A lot of them have had this thought before. It's like you care about this chick, and now you realize, oh, other people are having the same sentiments, the same intentions, and you want to almost steal her away and protect her from that. Others that he did, oh, I did read Forbidden Colors, wasn't that great from what I remember. And then patriotism. If you want a picture of traditional Japanese martial culture, it's fantastic. Some will go, oh, well, he was a bisexual. Yeah, well, he had bigger balls than most of these right wing tradcons. He tried to put a stop to what was happening in Japan, and people just made fun of him, all the modernists, all the bourgeois. And then he took not the coward's way out, he took the traditional Japanese way out, which that takes guts, lol, to do that. Most people don't have the willpower to take such a stance. So he is very well missed. A little bit more lighthearted, but King Solomon's Mines, just a great adventure story. And the way they portray the relationship between I want to say he's British or South African explorer and the African girl is just fantastic. And that, in one sense, it's pure and idealistic, but it can't work due to the world. So it was touching. They made a movie based on it, and unfortunately, they had Richard Chamberlain. They turned it into some gimmicky comedy. Plus, once you know that Chamberlain was on the other side, you just can't take it seriously. So read the book, avoid the film. Dino Buzzati, The Tartar Steppe. Yes. As with many people, I came across this due to the Black Swan book. This text is haunting, but it's in a way you can't put it down. In fact, I let a friend borrow a copy last year, and he was like, Goldberg, you bastard, I hate this book, and I can't stop reading it. And it's very much the case. All right, the Kings of Science Fiction. I delved a bit into Asimov, I, Robot, Arthur C. Clarke, the Rama series. I want to say he did When Worlds Collide as well. It was pretty decent. Heinlein, I'm a big fan of Starship Troopers and some of his smaller novels, like I think it was Civilization 2100 or something along the lines of that. There was also Moon is a Harsh Mistress. Now, Stranger in a Strange Land to me was not very compelling. It's kind of in the class of The Catcher in the Rye, Love in the Time to Call Robbie. Oh, people who are sexually repressed encounter sexual liberation. Maybe at the time it was groundbreaking, but unless you really have been living inside a vacuum cleaner your entire life, it's like, whatever. I wouldn't necessarily spend much time on those books because there's better material out there. And this one I brought up before, in contrast to Love in the Time to Call Robbie, Gabriella Cloven Cinnamon, highly recommended. This is one of the most red pill books you'll come across. Motivations of Stacy type girls who are very attractive versus what the pretty boy can offer or the hardworking economic maxer, that kind of thing. And it's eminently readable. It's one of the few novels that I found hard to put down. This one deserves brief mention, Memoirs of an Anti-Semite. Again, a really good way of capturing sometimes how people, they'll adopt a position, but then there are some hypocrisies mixed in. I thought it was pretty entertaining. I'd never heard about it, so I just randomly searched in the library because I was doing research for the current book and came across it. It was enjoyable to read. This one, quite recent actually, Machines Like Me. Not a brilliant novel, but I appreciated the way it dealt because you could kind of imagine if you're say a TFM, you got your doll, but what if it becomes advanced enough that it starts having hypergamistic trends, if it wants to maybe cheat on you or have an open relationship? It was a funny idea. So you can definitely take a look if you're interested. And so we get to David Foster Wallace, brought him up before. I'm of the opinion certain individuals only spend so much time on Earth for a reason, but they have a good message that is left behind. And so The Pale King is one of his most famous. That captures the mentality of the federal government's bureaucratic drone in a way that few others can. That was hilarious. I think I listened to the audiobook. It was pretty fantastic. Another one he did was Interviews with Hideous Men, and it's just hilarious because he's trying to break down how guys approach intimacy with women, how they try to rationalize it. So you've got the dude who's, I'm just in here for myself, hit it like a porn star, one and done. And then you've got the little Redditor soy male who's like, oh no, I'm going to be better than that evil misogynist, and I'm going to go down on her for 45 minutes because I'm a feminist. But he becomes an arrogant jackass in that process because he thinks he's better than someone else. So it was very well done. And yeah, I mean, I guess we could add on Chuck Palahniuk, Fight Club. The Invention of Sound was pretty decent as well. There's probably some authors that are being missed, and if you want, put them in the comments. I may link to some of these books. I'm not going to be too over the top because there's so many. But yeah, novels to me are most valuable when they give you some insight into how life is. Like the characters are not Mary Sue's, they're not perfect, they don't always have the solution. There's struggle there. And you can see yourself in that same position. You can see yourself having similar thoughts or responses. That's what I like. So let me know if there's any novels that you think should be on the list recommended that people should check out.